Militants terrorizing the gas-rich northern Cabo Delgado province for the past 4 years have in recent weeks shifted their attacks to the west into Niassa. The latest displacements add to the more than 820,000 that have fled Cabo Delgado since 2017. Since July, more than 3,000 soldiers have been deployed from Rwanda and 16-nation Southern African Development Community SADC to help Mozambican army to fight against the militants. Well, to unpack the security situation in Mozambique, we're now joined by Willem Els, who's a Senior Training Co-ordinator at the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, thanks very much indeed for joining us. When we last spoke, one of the questions that I asked you was, is this going to spread to other parts of the country? And it seems to be what's playing out.
Good evening, Peter. Yes, you are right. We see that there are currently three areas of operations where these insurgents are very active, of which Niassa, the eastern parts of Niassa, is one of them, and then to the north in Angade, as well as in the Makumia area where the South African soldier was killed. So those are the three areas where it's spread to now, but there are indications that it might spread even beyond the Niassa province.
What does this mean then for the fight against this insurgents? Are they able to move around quickly and to pop up there, and once the security forces arrive, they'll go somewhere else?
Yes, Peter, the challenge that you have is a very vast area, and there are definitely not enough boots on the ground in order to maintain a tight grip on these insurgents. So you have a challenge that they can move around, they mingle with the local population, and then they have their way. We also see that in the Niassa province, where you have extremely densely forested areas, where it is extremely difficult to trace them or track them from the air or by vehicle, where they then have a free rein, they just disappear into these forests and then they come out and perpetrate their attacks. That makes the whole situation a bit different for the SAMM forces that are actually pursuing them in that areas, because they have to disembark from their armored vehicles and follow them on foot, which make them much more vulnerable in this situation.
So what then is the intent for the militants? Is it just to cause disruption, that they're not trying to get any strategic advantage in terms of territory?
I think it is both. If you look at what happened in Cabo Delgado, they managed to destabilize most of the province before the deployment of SAMM and also the Rwandese forces. And now we see that the whole eastern part of Niassa is also being destabilized, as well as that you mentioned, you've got more than 4,000 IDPs that have moved to the towns. So that creates a very unstable and heartbreaking. I was there a few weeks ago, and we have been in the camps in Montpes and in also around Pemba and the Matush area. So, the hardship is severe. The international community, their hands are tied at the moment because of a lot of challenges and restrictions placed on them in order to deploy to help the people. And the Mozambican government does not really have the means to facilitate for these people. With most of these people that we spoke with, they said that they receive their food grants once every 2 months. That is not enough for them to come by. So now you have that situation in Cabo Delgado, and that is now unfolding in the Niassa province as well, where they do not have the infrastructure to support these people.
And with this displacement, a humanitarian crisis increases. Is this what we're seeing in Mozambique?
Yes, that is what we're seeing. We're seeing that the people are desperate. The people are really you know, wherever you go, you see children. The children are not going to school. We see a whole population that is sort of displaced. They're not working. They are just loitering around. They are not generating any income, and they are starting to become so dependent on international aid because the national government does not have the means to look after the situation in terms of providing aid for them. So that really opens up the whole situation. Now you have the Cabo Delgado province, you have the Niassa province, and also there are indications that these people are quite active in the Nampula province to the south of Cabo Delgado. So should that now spread to Niassa province and then downwards towards Nampula, you know, this situation is going to become too big even for the international community to deal with.
What needs to happen then to get on top of this? Is it just a question of more troops on the ground from SADC?
Peter, I think we have to look at history. History dictates to us that nowhere in Africa have we had success with a purely military approach. What we have here, we've got a mainly military approach, and they are stabilizing, they are driving the insurgents away from the strategic areas in order for the gas exploration to continue, but it's not going to solve the problem. They will have to pull the rabbit out of the hat, and they will really have to come up with an ingenious approach where they come with a holistic approach, addressing the military situation, the security situation, but also, you know, there's a lot of things being said and a lot of things being written about this situation. But at the end of the day, if you go and look at all these papers and all this research that have been done, it boils down that the Mozambican government has to get its political house in order, and they have to resort to good governance principles. Apart from that, they have to deliver the political goods. That will bring back the hearts and the minds of the people. These insurgents will not be able to operate in an area where they are not wanted, where they are not actually accepted and aided by the local community as well. So that is at the long end the solution.
In the meantime, it seems as if these insurgents, it looked as if they had been pushed back, almost suggesting some kind of victory by the SADC forces and Rwandan forces. Have they been able to build up, replenish and get bigger, re-strategize? What is happening?
That is exactly what is happening. You know, if you look at what happened, the Rwandan forces, when they came in, their objective was to clean or to clear up the two districts of Palma as well as Mozambique Praia in order for the gas exploration to continue. They did so, and ever since they secured those two districts, these insurgents just moved to the Makumia area, they moved to the Nangade area, where they became the problem of the Samin forces. And the challenge that you have now is that they're not in one certain area, they're not in one big camp, they're in various camps all around the forested areas, making it extremely difficult for some forces to gather intelligence and also then to follow up. And we are going to see many more casualties if we continue the way we are at the moment. These people, they just mingle in with the local population. You do not know who is a terrorist, who is a soldier, or who is a local fisherman. So they just reinvent themselves. These guys are ingenious in what they are doing. You can see how they managed to regroup themselves, how they managed to rebuild after they lost their Mbao camp. And how they managed to spread to the Niassa province. So that is what we anticipate is going to continue as long as we do not have enough soldiers on the ground to really contain them. They will just move on and move to new areas, and then they will just operate from there. They will regroup and also replenish, because what we see is in especially in the Nangade area and the Makumia area, they would go to the towns and the villages and they will loot them for food, so they get their food from them, they have attack on the military and the police brigades, and they get their ammunition from them and their weapons. So these guys just keep on reinventing themselves and replenishing themselves. So we will have to look to break this vicious cycle. And this vicious cycle will only be broken once we come up with a holistic approach to solve this problem.
Willem, we're going to have to leave it there, but I suspect this is a conversation we're going to have quite often during the course of this year. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Peter.
All right.